Afternoon. The Secretary General this morning congratulated Nadia Murad and Dr. Denis Mukwege on being awarded the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize. In defending the victims of sexual violence in conflict, he said, they have defended our shared values. The Secretary General said that Nadia Murad's powerful advocacy has touched people across the world and helped to establish a vitally important United Nations investigation of the harrowing crimes that she and so many others endured. Dr. Denis Mukwege, he said, has been a strong voice calling for the world's attention to the shocking crimes committed against women in wartime. As a skilled, sensitive surgeon, he has not only repaired shattered bodies, but restored dignity and hope. The Secretary General added that this award is part of a growing movement to recognize the violence and injustice disproportionately faced by half of our population. He said we must honor these new Nobel laureates by standing up for victims of sexual abuse and violence everywhere. His full remarks are online. And 1 week after the earthquake and tsunami that hit central Sulawesi in Indonesia, the humanitarian country team has launched a $50 million response plan. The plan, developed in consultation with the Indonesian government, and outlines how aid workers will provide targeted technical assistance in support of the government-led response to help 191,000 people over the next 3 months. More than 1,500 people are believed to have died, with 2,500 more seriously injured after the earthquake that struck Palu on 28 September. The UN resident coordinator in Indonesia, Anita Nirodi, said that Palu and neighboring Donggala have been cut off due to landslides and infrastructure damage, creating logistical and access challenges. She said the new response plan will provide not only immediate relief items, but also the logistical support needed to provide aid to those in need. And you will have seen that we issued a statement yesterday afternoon on Cameroon, in which the Secretary General encouraged all Cameroonians to exercise their democratic right and called for a peaceful, credible, and inclusive process as the country prepares for presidential elections on October 7th. The Secretary General called on all stakeholders to exercise restraint before, during, and after the elections. He also urges the candidates to address any complaints related to the electoral process through established legal and constitutional channels. The Secretary General condemned all threats of violence or acts of intimidation by any group and reiterates that all grievances should be addressed through an inclusive dialogue. The United Nations stands ready to provide the support in this regard. And the UN mission in the Central African Republic has received new allegations of sexual abuse of at least 3 minors by Mauritanian peacekeepers in the southern part of the Central African Republic. As soon as the first allegations were reported on September 24th, a multidisciplinary team was sent to the scene to establish the needs of the alleged victims, identify the perpetrators, and collect and preserve relevant evidence. A team from the Office of Internal Oversight Services, the Conduct and Discipline Section, and the Victim Rights Advocate also visited the site last week to reinforce the preliminary investigations. The alleged victims have received medical and psychosocial support from 2 partners within the UN system. Given the seriousness of the allegations and the information gathered by the preliminary fact-finding team, the UN took immediate and appropriate measures, including the confinement of 1 suspect who has been identified. The concerned troop contributing country has been informed of the allegations. It was requested to appoint a national investigation officer within 5 working days and for the investigation to be completed within the reduced 90-day time frame. More information on a press release issued by the peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic. And our humanitarian colleagues tell us that millions of hungry and destitute Yemenis are being challenged by the rapid and uncontrolled devaluation of the Yemeni rial. Lise Grande, the humanitarian coordinator, said that if the rial continues its downward spiral, 3.5 to 4 million more Yemenis will fall into pre-famine conditions. In the past month, the cost of minimum family food basket has increased by 11%, diesel risen by 45%, and cooking oils skyrocketed as much as 200% in the worst-hit areas. The UN's World Food Program and partners are providing assistance to nearly 8 million people who are desperately hungry each month. And the African Union Commissioner for Peace and Security, Ambassador Smail Shurgi, the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, and the co-chair of the Network of African Women in Conflict Prevention and Mediation, known as AU FemWise, Dr. Speciosa Wandira Kazwibwe, and the Executive Director of UN Women will jointly visit South Sudan from the 7th to the 9th of October. The delegation is expected to meet with the President, the First Vice President, and other high-level government officials of South Sudan's Transitional Government of National Unity. The visit will focus on the significance of ensuring women's meaningful participation and leadership in the implementation of the recently signed peace agreement. The delegation will also meet with women leaders and organizations in Juba and Bentiu, including representatives of protection and civilian sites. After South Sudan, they will go to Addis Ababa, where they will brief the AU Peace and Security Council on October 10th, and then they will jointly brief the UN Security Council later this month. And the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, said today it is greatly concerned over the safety and security of 7 nationals of Myanmar who were returned from India to Myanmar yesterday. On learning of their detention and planned return, and based on credible reports that 7 men are Rohingyas, UNHCR requested access to this group to assess their needs for international refugee protection. UNHCR regrets that they did not receive a response to this request and was unable to secure a lawyer from state legal services in India. The agency continues to seek clarification from the authorities on why these individuals were returned to Myanmar and is concerned they did not have access to legal counsel and were not given a chance to access asylum processing or have their claims assessed in India. And the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, today condemned the execution in Iran this week of Zainab Sekavan Lokran, a juvenile offender. She was convicted of murdering her husband in 2012 when she was only 17 years old, but her claim that she was coerced into confessing to the killing, that she had been a victim of domestic violence, were reportedly not adequately examined during her trial. More information on the Office of the High Commissioner's website. And today is World Teachers' Day, and this theme is the right to education means the right to a qualified teacher. In a joint statement, the heads of UNESCO, UNICEF, UNDP, and the International Labour Organization stress the importance of investing in a strong teaching workforce, including in conflict countries. As we celebrate teachers' important contributions to improving the lives of children and youth around the world, we reaffirm our commitment to increasing the global supply of qualified teachers. They said, and urged all governments of the international community to join them in this endeavor so that all children and young people, no matter what their circumstances, can secure the right to quality education and a better future. Please be patient. And on Monday, 11 o'clock, there'll be a press briefing here on the launch of the World Economic Social Survey 2018. This year's theme is Frontier Technologies for Sustainable Development. Speakers will include Liu Jimin, the Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, and Hamid Rashid, the Chief of the Development Research Branch in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. After you're done with me, we will welcome Monica, the spokeswoman for the PGA. Oh, you had a question.
Thank you, Stéphane. I wanted to follow up with you on the last paragraph in the Secretary General's statement on the Nobel Peace Prize winners, which you just read out, which was to do with the award is part of a growing movement to recognise the violence and injustice disproportionately faced by half our population. Let us honour these new Nobel laureates by standing up for victims of sexual violence everywhere. Would the Secretary General apply this statement to the current debate happening in the United States related to the nomination of a Supreme Court justice?
This was not focused on one event. I think that last paragraph speaks for itself and is an issue that the Secretary General has been focusing on very much since he first came into office. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Thanks, Steph. In the CAR, do you have the ages of the victims?
They're minors. I don't have any more.
What's a minor?
The minor is somebody under the age of 18.
But you don't have the ages.
They're minors. That's okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I just wanted to ask, are you going to have some conference with Nadia Murad, maybe next week or
I
anytime
would
soon?
check with our colleagues in the Office of Drugs and Crime. Simone, who's the head of office here, she should be able to tell you she's a goodwill ambassador for that.
Thank you.
Masood.
Thank you, Stéphane. Stéphane, on this situation in Gaza, yesterday one young boy, age 15, was killed and 24 were injured by the Israeli, forces firing these grenades at them. Do you have anything to say about that? And then also, has the Secretary General been able to prevail upon the Israeli authorities to release some sort of funds? The crossings to be.
I'll have to get you an update on the situation on the crossings. I don't have anything with me. Obviously, it is important that every loss of life be fully investigated.
Okay, sir. Another thing I wanted to ask you. While the Secretary General was in India, and you were there with him, at that point in time, there were some Rohingya refugees who were being deported at that time from Indian part of West Bengal and so forth. Do you have anything about this?
I just read an update for you on UNHCR expressing their deep concern about the repatriation of the 7, and further Secretary General stands behind UNHCR as the High Commissioner for Refugees is the voice of authority on issues having to do with refugees and refugee protection. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Since the Secretary General mentioned the investigation into possible Daesh war crimes that was instigated in part due to Nadia Murad's advocacy, any brief update on where that stands or when there might be an update?
I can check. I know they've begun their work. I think there is a reporting calendar, and I'll check for you what that calendar is. Monica, your podium. Enjoy and welcome.
Thank you very much.